Back in the day, video games lacked any kind of narrative. Until the 1990s, the majority of games' plots came down to saving the world. In recent years, gaming has placed a greater emphasis on world building and character development. Plot holes are becoming more evident as the industry emphasizes the story more than ever. In today's video, we'll be talking about video game plot holes no one talks about. First up in Metal Gear Solid, Snake actually didn't need to go into the microwave room. In MSG4, Old Snake and Raiden arrive at the server room door, which grants them entry to GWAI. The passageway is coated with microwaves that may boil all water inside a person's body, preventing unauthorized persons from entering. Snake marches into the corridor despite knowing that it's essentially a suicide mission to get to the server room. However, given that Raiden is essentially a computer at this point, then that would have made considerably greater logic for him to take on this perilous mission. You may argue that Snake was dying anyhow and wanted to go out on a high note, but Snake is so sick at this point that he can hardly walk. His heart is on the verge of giving out before he reaches the corridor. Raiden, as well as the remaining companions, would have been doomed if he would have a heart attack midway through. Raiden, on the other hand, has superhuman speed and can dart in and out of the server room without sustaining permanent damage. Snake was clearly forced to carry out this operation in order for the authors to portray him as a selfless hero, despite the fact that his motivation for doing so was illogical. Second, in Uncharted, Drake's Fortune and Uncharted 4. Elena Fisher, a journalist and television personality, frequently assists Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series. Despite her desire to join Nathan on his first treasure quest, Sully persuades Nathan to ditch Elena in Panama, leaving her in the dark about their next destination. Elena not only discovers Nathan's plans for the Amazon, but she also tracks him down despite the fact that the jungle spans roughly 2 million square miles. If that was a one-time occurrence, you might overlook the logical jump. By contrast, Texas is 3 times the size of the United Kingdom, while the United Kingdom is 20 times the size of the United States. However, she does it once more in Uncharted 4. While Nathan is lost in Madagascar, Elena is able to locate him by following gunshots. Elena's defense is that she's such a brilliant journalist that she might have worked out Nathan was on his way to Madagascar, and because she knows Nathan really well at this time and has a flair for going on adventures, she'd have a good notion of where he'd be hunting for treasure. However, because Madagascar is the 4th largest island, the odds of running across Nate are essentially nil. Third, in Bioshock 2, the Big Daddy prototype is more useful than the official one. Bioshock was not just a fantastic game, but it was also a piece of art. The outstanding title from 2K Games featured an Ayn Rand-inspired plot, intriguing characters, a continuously tense environment, and magnificent gameplay. Even while several features from the game, such as Little Sister, as well as the "Would You Kindly" slogan, have since become iconic, the Big Daddy was one that caught everyone's attention. Fans loved this hulking beast so much that the makers decided to make him the primary character in the sequels. Unfortunately, because they're too huge to fit through a doorway and have the speed of a dead turtle, a Big Daddy isn't exactly protagonist material. To get around this, the developers of Bioshock 2 developed a prototype Big Daddy who's really smaller, quicker, and more agile. Despite the fact that the original Daddy could only strike including its drill arm, this guy can use a wide range of weapons and plasmids. This raises the question of why the prototype isn't the official Big Daddy. Why did his creator, Dr. Yi Su-chung, make the final model bigger, slower, and less efficient in every way? Fourth, in Resident Evil 2, how is Ada still alive? On the first day as a cop during Resident Evil 2, Leon Kennedy discovers himself in the center of a zombie infestation. He meets a mystery woman named Ada Wong while attempting to flee the city. Leon perceives her as an ally despite her evasion of his questioning and disappearances with little warning. However, Ada confesses in the finale that she employed Leon to track down the zombie G virus. However, Ada is shot by a third party during this revelation, leading her to tumble down a shaft. If you do the B objective, this scenario is much more tragic since Ada confesses her love for Leon before taking her dying breath. This romantic encounter, however, is destroyed when Ada comes later without reason to assist Leon in defeating the penultimate boss. When Leon sees Ada again in the events of RE4, he is taken aback. The only reason he's astonished is that she's working with Wesker, a malevolent virologist. Leon, are you serious? Isn't that the thing that surprises you? Isn't that the whole point of being alive? What's more aggravating is that Capcom had the opportunity to address this plot hole inside the 2019 edition of RE2. However, Ada's fall has stayed identical in this version, leaving no reason how she managed to live. Fifth, Life is Strange game breaks into own rules almost immediately. In Life is Strange, a photojournalist named Max discovers she has the ability to reverse time. Max impulsively uses her skill for the very first time when she watches a student murder her close friend inside the school restroom, sending her to the classroom soon before the crime. When Max time travels, however, it's the only time she returned to her original physical place. She stays precisely where she is the rest of the time. This contradiction is made more perplexing by the fact that it was the first occasion we've seen Max using her abilities, so we think they'll always operate this way. Some gamers point out that the first time Max time traveled, she switched positions since she hasn't yet mastered her abilities. Being able to travel across time and space, on the other hand, is far more useful. Thus, it's unclear why she loses the power when her rewinding talents improve. If it was necessary for the plot, you might overlook this inconsistency consistency, but it isn't the case. If her abilities perform the same way at the start as they do throughout the game, the opening sequence would have been unaffected. 6th, in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the rat ghouls cannot infect anyone. The locals will warn you that the slums are inhabited by mutants known as rat ghouls when you explore them in Knights of the Old Republic. Anyone who's bitten or wounded by these abominations will turn into a rat ghoul in a matter of hours. There was nothing that would stop an infected from changing into these ghastly creatures unless they get their fingers on an extraordinarily rare antidote. That's what you're taught, at least. You will undoubtedly get swatted by rat ghouls several times throughout the fight. Despite the fact that rat ghouls are difficult to kill, particularly in big groups, your character cannot be infected by them. Since you're a force wielder, you might assume you're immune to the sickness at first. This idea doesn't hold up though, because your buddies are immune to the illness while not being attuned to the force. Unfortunately, this discrepancy may have been resolved by explaining that some people are immune to the sickness. We're left with a glaring plot hole because nothing like this is discussed. 7th, in Metroid the series, Samus keeps on killing the last Metroid. Samus Aran, a galactic bounty hunter, explores the cosmos in Metroid to seek down the space pirates who murdered her parents. To use the genetics of a Metroid parasite, these aliens want to construct a biological weapon. The last Metroid on planet gives its life to free Samus from the terrifying Mother Brain in Super Metroid. Despite the fact that the Metroid sacrifice was for a good cause, its actions resulted in the extinction of the species. Except, no it didn't. The Metroids were still around in the follow-up, Metroid Other M, for reasons. Later in the game, Samus cripples the Metroid station, putting them out of business once more. In Metroid Fusion, however, the cunning parasites show that they are still alive, despite the fact that they're blown up at the conclusion. Again, for a third time, Metroid Dread reveals that they're not dead. Samus is technically a Metroid because her life was saved using Metroid genetics in the past, which means the creatures can never completely die while she is alive. Despite the fact that Samus killed the final Metroid several times, it's reasonable to presume that these creatures will continue to appear in future installments. That's all we have for today's video. What do you think about some of these video game plot holes no one talks about? Did you catch them? Did we miss any plot holes in video games? Make sure to let us know what you think in the comments below.